Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us on our latest Spotlight series. Today we have Terry Crump from New England Wireless with us, a USL agent. Terry, so great to have you. Thanks again for taking the time to chat with us.
Glad to be here.
I would love to just maybe kick this off with you giving us an introduction to yourself, to New England Wireless, and how you kind of run the show over there.
Sure. I just celebrated my 24th year in the industry. So pretty excited about that. I started, my brother actually was in the business. He started in this industry before I did and kind of roped me in. I was going back to school at the time, and he asked me to sell some phones for the summer, and I never went back. So about 15 years ago, we were partners, and we owned a handful of stores for US Cellular and Cell One Boston, which became Singular Wireless. And eventually, due to all the mergers and acquisitions, we had to look to split off the stores. So I started New England Wireless back in 2005, and been very happy to be completely dedicated to US Cellular ever since.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's great. And, New England Wireless is one of Statflow's newer USL agents. So I'd love to kind of kick this off by digging into maybe what life before Statflow looked like for you guys, what you were doing in the way of customer outreach, and then, obviously would love to hop into what life has been since you guys started with us.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of our culture, we've really focused on outreach to customers, to our existing base, as well as new customers. But we've always prided ourselves in dedicating a lot of time and energy towards reaching out to our customers. So it's always been a part of what we do. And we utilize some of the resources that were available to us at the time. We use RQ, IQ Metrics, the software program that we use for, we're able to utilize that tool as to capture customers that we can reach out to. We were also able to utilize a CRM tool that US Cellular provided called Sales Now. Again, ways that we were able to generate leads and really lists that we could work off of to reach out to our existing base.
Right. And that was what I found so interesting about onboarding you guys was a lot of the time customers have not done super robust outreach programs. And you guys had, so, it wasn't necessarily a huge cultural shift that your team had to make to get into Statflow, but, how was there any particular way you were evaluating the success of your outreach before?
Honestly, I think that was the area that we lacked the most. We relied a lot on manual reporting, and every day people would report what they made for outreach, but we didn't have a lot of insight into those actual messages going out, or calls, or results. So
Right.
That was always something that we struggled with, to be honest with you.
Was that the driving force for getting something like Statflow, the accountability?
100%. Accountability was the thing that just kept on coming back. Every time I would talk about Statflow and look at it and analyze the costs associated with it, and how do I look at that. And the accountability piece was always the driving force that I could say, that's the one thing that we're missing now. And really was what, gave us a lot of an advantage over what we were doing before by taking on Statflow.
Right. And so because, the platform gives managers full visibility into what their teams are sending out. Before, was it just, texting off of maybe a work phone, and, once it was sent, you would either have to get the actual device itself to review the conversation?
Well, we did have a program that we used, and we switched over to a voice over internet platform a ways back that provided texting capability.
Okay.
So we did have some, it was functional. It was shared amongst everyone in the store. So messages were going out, and whoever was there the next day might catch that message. It wasn't really the best solution for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it better than having people utilize their own device, right? And the risk that tie to that. I didn't feel comfortable with people using their own personal device sending out messages.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted it to be tied to us and have control over that. So we definitely had a tool, but again, we didn't all have access to that. Every message that was going out, and it was difficult to hold people accountable to what they were sending out at the time.
And so, I mean, I guess that brings us to Statflow and where your team is with it today. And so you guys obviously see the value in that like level of accountability, maybe that your team doesn't necessarily see. So I'm curious to know, like, since making the shift, management has, full visibility into what's being said to your customers, what they're saying back to you. How has your team sort of embraced that, knowing that they are now being held accountable to the company's standards and it's being acted on, right?
Yeah, well, it is funny. There are times that people are suggesting that certain actions have been taken, and now that we do have full insight into everything that's happening, we're able to maybe redirect those thoughts and challenge the behaviors a little bit more than we were able to beforehand. So
Right.
Really at the front line, the sales manager being able to see that every day, be able to go in and look at that, and from myself to be able to look at it as well, and be able to talk to the store leaders about what's happening and really narrow it down, not just by assumptions or hopes and prayers. It's reality, and we see it.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, like, I know that, sometimes Statflow is looked at as an additional task to their already, busy days dealing with customers, working with the general public. But ultimately, there's always that investment point where people start to say, oh, this actually works for me. Oh, I made this much more commission this month based off of people who came to see me who I reached out to on Statflow. Has that turning point happened for your team yet, or, the buy-in?
Well, yeah, because we were doing this, we were the focus was on outreach before. People were prepared for it, right? So it wasn't so much of a change in their daily routines so much. But on day one, when we started using this, I remember within the first hour, I remember someone reaching out to me and saying, "This is so much easier than what we used to do. It's so awesome." And it was a chat starters, right? So not having to even think about it, just click on the chat starter and send out the message. And this was day one, where people had done minimal training, right? They were really just jumping in and doing it, and really the buy-in was instant. And even the folks who have been somewhat resistant to making outreach before, it's so easy, that we can say, just take 20 minutes, just bang out 50 of them. It's so quick and so easy. You can get those initial chat starters going within minutes and see results from that. So we've definitely had a lot of buy-in.
Good. And I said this earlier today, I forget the context, but I've done outbound sales myself, and there's always like trying to strike that balance between quality versus quantity. And so from what I've seen with Statflow is with those chat starters, with those templated messages that the spelling's good, it's relevant to why we're reaching out to someone, that takes care of the quality part. And so if you can just, hit that checkbox as well as send those messages to all of the people who were surfacing from your database that month, it's the perfect formula for success and generating those sales.
Yeah, we've definitely, our old methods were much more focused on quantitative data, right? As opposed to qualitative, that we now have so much more insight into that. We really want to uncover the value and how to really send out the best messages possible. We focus a lot on the welcome list of the customers within the first couple of weeks, and we definitely get the highest response and great response from that. And I think it's really helping us working on minimizing chargebacks and really be able to target those customers early on to talk about any issues that do come up. We're right there for them. They know that we're available, and they do appreciate us reaching out early on.
Yeah, you've mentioned something to me, and I'm really digging into how you're managing your team right now, because you guys are so fresh and have had such a strong start with the program. But you mentioned a concept of Statflow Reviews to me that you do with your team. I would love if you could kind of explain the motive behind that, the results and what you've seen from that initiative.
Yeah, and it ties back to the quality over the quantity, right? So, which was the other piece of what I really liked about Statflow. So the accountability piece, we can sit down, the manager sits down with the associate and they dive into their actual smart lists and look at responses. They're able to filter out by the type of response, right? So if there's a SMS in progress, they can look at all of those, actually dive into the message and see what's happening. So not only talk about how many messages have been sent out or not, as the case may be, but more importantly, let's really look at these responses, and it allows us the opportunity for the leader to develop the associate and talk about what that conversation should look like, right? Yeah. And what does it now look like? How do we scrub that account and start looking at what opportunities there are, right? And how many lines are eligible for upgrades, and maybe we can position a tablet or another connected device in that conversation that we're having, and how to really continue that conversation in a manner that's quality, right? We talk, not just, oh, good, I'm glad you're having a nice day, having a nice day, right? But diving further in. And it's really helped. It's about the development piece of it that we're looking at it. So we're able to hold the associate accountable, but also really tied, developing their skills in the process of communicating with the customer.
I love, and I that's where the growth comes from. Like, when you look at Statflow as a task that you need to knock off, like you're going to just quickly be like, great, have a good day. Thanks for, if someone responds. But once you, start looking at it as like an opportunity to develop your professional skills and the way that you might close a sale, that's where the engagement comes from. And, when you let your personality come through text, like make a little joke or say something that's very relevant to the customer. Perhaps you've been diligent and you've logged a note, like maybe when you saw the customer, they were in the process of buying a house or something, and, following up with them and making that personal connection. People appreciate that. And that's, maybe the sale isn't there right at that specific moment, but that's what's going to pay off later when the customer does need something and they remembered this, funny conversation or personal conversation they had with someone. They're like, oh, I'm going to go see Terry at New England Wireless. Like, that's what's going to keep your customers coming back to you.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So I love the Statflow reviews. Now you mentioned sometimes, even with outreach that you guys were doing before Statflow, you always get those, people who maybe push back on change. How have you guys been working with some of those reps maybe that you deal with that are still a little bit resistant to using Statflow, to, reaching out to customers in the way that people are doing so today?
Yeah, I was actually having a one-on-one with one of our sales leaders today, and he has a very strong salesperson in one of his stores, and she has always been resistant to change like this, and she has her own approach to reaching out to customers. So even with this process, it's, she's been reaching out by not utilizing Statflow so much. She'll take the list and then either call them or she'll text them on her own phone. And so he sat down with her and he said, well, let's go through this and show me what you had for responses by doing that. And she couldn't really, show that, demonstrate that. And he said, well, let's go through some of these you haven't reached out to and utilize it. And they actually went through, sent out the messages, and within seconds, fortunately, for his benefit, she actually got a response. Oh. And it was very positive, and it like a light bulb went off, and she said, wow, this is amazing. And the other piece that we've been able to use to help her, kind of turn that light bulb on, is looking at the ROI report that shows where actual results have come in, because that has actually been able to show that we're sending messages out and we're not necessarily always getting responses, but we're getting sales coming in. And it's whether the ones, she wasn't sending out so many, but another associate in the store was staying right up on top of it, and a lot of those customers were coming in, and she actually got the benefit of some of those sales. So she started to go, geez, I didn't even think about that and didn't realize all that. So she's really buying in. So we've really been able to sit down with the folks who have been struggling with, embracing it and just showing the value of it. And we're really getting a lot of buy-in. I very little resistance right now, thank God.
Awesome. I love to hear that too. And I think that some people, and especially with reps, they're like, oh, my manager's on top of me. I need to send these messages. No one responds to me. The funny thing with that is, response rate, obviously it's a great way to track how engaged, your customers are, but that's not the sole, way to track conversion. Where, I'm the queen of getting text messages from my friends and reading it, being like, yeah, like I'll attend that, and not responding.
Right.
And so I love seeing, that text message go out on Statflow, that chat starter is sent, customer doesn't respond. Sometimes reps don't even follow up, and it's like 2 days later that customer comes into the store and purchases something. And so that's powerful. Just even sending that chat starter to plant the seed, and you see results from that. So again, there's really there is something to the quantity that Statflow can help you achieve in terms of messages sent out quickly.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and it's been great to see that report I referenced. The ROI report is one that I look at a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been, obviously it helps me see the value in the whole process, but more importantly, I've been able to utilize that to start to see, are there trends? Are there certain people that are sending out messages that are getting better results? And we're actually then able to go in and kind of look at the messages they've sent and see what those conversations look like, and really start to talk about the success that they're having. We can see the results, the sales in the store from those messages, but more importantly, we can now ask them to kind of be an expert at this, subject matter expert really, and kind of show the way and talk about what they're doing maybe a little differently. It's really helped us that way too.
Definitely. And, there's not like one answer. You guys are the subject matter experts on your own customer base. Like what someone else is doing maybe on the other side of the country may not work well for your customers. And so having that collaborative environment to talk about what, your general customer base is responding well to, that also is just a trove of knowledge and information sharing. So it's really great that your management team is transparent in that way, and wants to duplicate someone's success across at scale. So I just think that's so awesome. Now, we've talked about a couple metrics. Are there anything else in particular that you guys are keeping an eye on or wanting to improve in terms of Statflow outreach and how it affects sales?
So we're still focused a lot on really that response rate, but the conversations that we're having, and being able to further that. So go deeper in and actually see the number of sales that we're processing per message sent out, right? So, I think some of it's real basic too, is just continuing to focus on quantity, right? Yeah. So every time we send out a new list, we're looking for everyone to try to complete all the initial chats by the 15th of the month is our goal. So the initial chat starter, especially we have our welcome list loading back up in the middle of the month so every couple of weeks. So we got to stay on top of that. And, but we really focus on getting those initial messages out. So we're looking at that within the first 15 days, really every day, see where we are, who needs to get on top of it. Some people are off for a few days, right? So we have to make sure we're paying attention to that. And then it's really about sitting down on those Statflow reviews and just understanding what other opportunities are in those conversations for additional sales opportunities.
For sure. Just out of curiosity, how often do you do those reviews with your team?
So everyone's expected to do them once a week with each associate and manager with each associate.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe switching gears a little bit, you guys are at the end, or September will mark the end of your third full month with Statflow. I'm grateful that aligns up with the fiscal year. It just keeps things easier in my mind. But any, with this weird year that we've had, and no one really knows what Black Friday is going to look like, which is, historically such a huge month for retail, across all verticals. What does Q4 look like for you guys, and, where you think Statflow might come in to help with, whether it's COVID outreach or, during COVID, I guess, driving sales that maybe used to be organic that may not, you may not see the same kind of traffic that you're used to. Any sort of strategy that you're taking there?
Well, Q4 also is aligning with another launch of an iconic device, which is also something that we're really going to lean heavily on Statflow to help drive previous Apple customers in to look to purchase the new Apple devices, whether it be iPads or phones. So that's one main thing, but we'll also be able to utilize it, as we approach Black Friday, to be reaching out to our customers to really have that opportunity to say, let them know what, if there are differences, right? If we, knock on wood, hopefully we don't need to, but maybe if we have to look at doing things like curbside sales again and different things. So when all this happened, it was difficult necessarily for us to reach out to a lot of customers to let them know about even that we were open, right? So now this gives us a good opportunity to talk about what our hours are and how we can best serve them, and maybe even be able to start the process. So with the busier traffic in the stores, we can help service a lot of our customers through text messaging. If they don't want to, they can give us a lot of information. We can be prepared for them when they come into the store.
Right. Keeping things quick and safe, and, getting people in and out as quickly as possible, but still having that good experience, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I'm excited to see the results. I know your team's gonna deliver. So I appreciate the time that you've given us this afternoon, and I just wanted to, if any of our listeners or viewers wanted to follow up with you, where can they find you?
I'd say LinkedIn is definitely a great resource. If anyone wants to connect through there, I'd be happy. I'd love to chat with anyone who's interested in learning more about this or just anything about the business. That'd be great.
And last question for you, but if you were giving advice to any other business at this time, going into what we know we're going into, what would you say to them?
Into this business in general, or using Statflow?
Well, dealer's choice.
Yeah. So, with everything going on, I utilizing Statflow, I think, it is such a great resource. It really allows you to be able to reach out to your customers, and really stay in contact with when there's so much uncertainty right now. It's just such a great resource and tool to be able to utilize for us to be able to, really work with our existing base. It's so hard to capture new customers all the time, and we have to really appreciate our existing customer base and really look to leverage them as a potential opportunity for additional sales as we move forward. So to be able to continue to grow that relationship with them, I think, really working with our existing base is so important.
Well said. You're here. All right, Terry. Well, thank you so much for the conversation again this afternoon. It was, I really enjoyed it, and I think lots of cool insights for all of our listeners.
Thank you very much.